a couple things came up for me when you said that. One is, I mean, to say that is to say that we are not reliant on anything for health, that the body does the whole thing. But here's Gerson Therapy, who introduces Mother Nature as our major resource through juicing and food as medicine and coffee, organic coffee beans. It's just the mind that's limiting the notion of putting the coffee in the enema, right?
Yeah, up the bum,
So to say
which is the opposite end of the mouth, by the way.
So it just, to me, is, yeah, of course, our bodies are so brilliant. And that's the whole thing. Like Gerson Therapy is relying on those detoxification pathways 100%. And it's leaning into the power of Mother Nature because she is our greatest resource.
Exactly.
Without her, we wouldn't be able to process. So it's a bit ridiculous to me.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Eat Real to Heal podcast. I am your host, Nicolette Richer, and today we're diving into a deeply personal and transformative healing story. Returning to the podcast is my guest, Zoe Ann Stimson, who was first diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at age 37. And this was a moment that completely changed her life. What followed was an incredible journey of courage, faith, and unconventional healing, which included the Gerson Therapy and somatic therapy, and which helped her rebuild herself from the inside out. This is a conversation about listening to your body, breaking free from fear, and finding connection through the messiness of real healing. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Eat Real to Heal podcast. I am so excited to welcome back to the show, Zoe Ann Stimson. Zoe, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, babe, we've been wanting to do this podcast for so long. I'm so glad that we're here. I know our audience is really excited for this. We had so many beautiful comments from your last show that you did with us. To everybody's hearts, inspired them, and I know they all want to know how you're doing. So we're going to be diving into so much today. Nothing is prepped or scripted, no questions prepared. This is just two gals getting together and going through it. So, my loves, where should we start?
Oh my goodness.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with an update for people since the last time we did a podcast and what's happened?
Try some food in my teeth. Oh my goodness, that's such a big question. I can't really remember where I was. I guess I was really immersed in the therapy, right? The last time.
Yeah.
It was about 6 months deep.
I think you were about 6 months deep. Yeah, you had gone from the year before being, or not the year before, but months before being in the hospital a lot with secondary infections, on lots of antibiotics. You were in Mexico, actually, and then you started the therapy, then you came back. Yeah, so we were probably almost like a year in when we did that podcast. And it was before you started traveling and going away. So things were going pretty well. You were strong. And then your health took a turn.
Yeah. Should we share a little bit about the disease in general, do you think, initially?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So why don't you let everybody know, for those who have not seen the first podcast, listen to the first podcast. Why don't we start there? That's a good idea.
Yeah. So the way that in 2017, I got diagnosed with cystic fibrosis related disorder. Cystic fibrosis is a disease that they realize has a spectrum. And when I was very young, most people get diagnosed within the first 2 years of life. So it's very, very, very rare to get diagnosed so late. But when I was really young, there's a discrepancy between my mom and my dad. My dad was like, it was like 2 weeks in, and my mom was like, it was like 8 weeks in. But I was really unwell. I wasn't gaining weight. I wasn't like digesting food well. And so they tested me for CF, cystic fibrosis, is known as CF. But they didn't have the spectrum testing that they do now. So years later, 2017, so however old I was 37 at the time. I just had Jude, and he was about a year old, and I was really struggling with my health. I was probably like 85 pounds. I was getting recurring infections. We had moved to a house, an old A-frame. And the first night we spent there, I turned over to my partner, Mike, and I said, babe, this house is like going to kill me. Something in the house, the molds, it was an older house, whatever it was, just I was so unwell. And after years and years of telling, 16 plus years of telling my doctors and naturopaths and all the physicians something was wrong, it got to a point where I knew that I was so unwell that I wasn't going to make it that much longer. And so I went to my doctor. I think this is a really important piece to share because the tenacity and conviction needed in order to get what we need as patients and as humans can be really difficult in our allopathic system.
Mm-hmm.
No fault to the individuals, but at a fault to the system. And so I approached my doctor and I said, you've got to do better. Like I am so unwell, and your capacity to be able to create or not create, to help find out what's going on with me is I'm at the mercy of your capacity to help me find out with what's going wrong. And so she ended up, I was so intense. I did say, you've got to fucking, I did lay down the law at that point, which was big for me as a people pleaser, and did all the tests, and eventually 0.9% chance they weren't going to test, and they ended up going into my lungs and doing a sweat chloride test and finding out that I do have cystic fibrosis related disorder, which is just a spectrum of cystic fibrosis. So at the time when I was 37, I looked up cystic fibrosis, not knowing much about it. And it was quite a morbid diagnosis, way more than I had recognized at the time. And they said that the average life expectancy was 37. So obviously that was a lot of processing, and beyond the physical trauma and dealing with the infections, there was this massive experience that my system and my family had to renegotiate in terms of what this really meant for me, for my life, and for my quality of life, and therefore my family's. And speed up, I was doing, sometimes I would do really well. Cold and flu seasons are really hard. And then, I was really healthy relative prior to Gerson. I was really healthy. Did all the things. I had been teaching yoga meditation for years, integrative nutrition for years. And it wasn't until my second child was born when was Sequoia born? 2021.
Yeah.
That I started getting really, really unwell.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at this time, about 5 months prior, I met Nick. And Nick introduced me to the Gerson Therapy. And I knew in the moment that I met Nick at our girlfriend's 50th birthday in the hot tub, I knew that one day I was going to need that therapy. But I wasn't unwell yet. So speed up 6 months later, I got really unwell. My disease traveled, became really prevalent in my digestive tract, which it hadn't done yet because it's a progressive disease. And I knew right then that I needed to hit up Gerson Therapy. And so
I think, and it's one of those things that for me, I remember when I met you, and I have to say, like in coaching thousands of clients around the world, they all come to me and they're like, I'm healthy, is what they say. I eat really healthy. And then we get into their fridges and their cupboards and see how they're cooking their food. I find like most people, they think they're healthy and they're truly not. They often take healthy foods and then destroy them through the cooking process, destroy them through the things that they put on there, or just the quality of the foods. Whereas for you, like I was watching you blend oats to make pancakes at this birthday, and I was like, this woman knows what she's doing. So when you called me and then told me, that you were thinking about doing it, I was like, I don't know if I can work with you. I've never worked with anybody with cystic fibrosis. So for me, I remember that was a very scary time for me, because here I have this woman who has a genetic disease that, like you said, most people live to be about 37. You were 40. How old were you at that time?
Oh my gosh, I'm not good with numbers.
40, just maybe.
I think maybe even 39 to 40.
Yeah.
40. No, I was 40. Yeah.
and
No,
so
I was 39.
were you 39? You were
I was
39.
39, yeah.
Yeah, because I was there. Yes,
Yeah.
for your birthday.
Yeah.
And, so that was, but I was like, how is this going to be, different? Because you were already eating so well,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew that there was like the pieces around the, liver detox, the coffee enemas, obviously certain supplements, but I just wanted to preface that it was for me, my first time working with somebody with a genetic disease,
Mm-hmm.
illness.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so then we went back and forth a little bit there, and I remember being like, "Ugh, I don't want to take responsibility. This woman knows everyone in our community. Like, if this doesn't
Mhm.
work,
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
and
it took
it's
some
such a big
convincing.
endeavor. And it's a big endeavor. Like, you had a little one, you had two little ones, really. You had June Sequoia, so
Mhm.
little.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that was an interesting time,
Yeah. Yeah. It was,
pivotal for
yeah.
me, yeah, as well, but for you as well.
Yeah. It's hard to even really wrap this into words because I have so many feelings coming over right now, thinking about just how much courage it took for both of us to be in that position, to really step outside of the box
Yeah,
and lean into the wisdom that we rarely get directed towards. And
yeah,
both you and I had each other. We had a friendship that had formed so strongly from the beginning,
yeah.
where we could really hold a safe container for both of us to have the courage to explore beyond what maybe our minds didn't know was possible yet, but our hearts and our bodies and that inherent wisdom that we hold as women
Mm,
knew was possible. And that's something that you and I held together
yeah,
so strongly. Maybe that's the one thing, is that courage piece.
it is.
I'm going to say that a number of times.
Yeah, well, and I know for myself, I've done a lot of work recently where, you know, and everything that came up has presented me with all the moments in my life where I moved forward or didn't move forward because of fear, and
Mm,
when I moved
mhm,
forward and didn't move forward because of courage or lack of courage. And it
mm,
was just this, that was it. There was just fear or courage. That was it.
mhm,
And it really showed me a lot, like there was a lot of wisdom in that learning. Um, and that was one of the moments where I said, I think I moved forward in fear, but for sure I knew I had to. But I also had a bit of a crutch to lean on because when I first started teaching this therapy to clients, I would always find somebody else who had done the therapy with that same disease. They had to be the same
mm,
gender, same sex, same disease, or roughly the same age. And because that would show me that it was possible. Like if there was one other person out there, it would show me it was possible. And I
mm.
was so fortunate that Faye Houston, no, I think it was Faye, not Faye Houston.
Definitely Faye. I don't
Was it?
remember her last name, but Faye
Yeah,
is her first name. Yeah.
yeah. And she had cystic fibrosis. She was a
Mhm.
woman who documented her story doing this therapy. And that's what gave me the courage to say, like, hey, there's this other person who did it. These are the results that she got.
Mhm.
You know, let's see. And that
Yeah.
was the only, I think that was probably the primary reason why I was able to do it.
Mm, mhm. You know what?
One
I
other woman had courage to document her story and the courage to do it with
Yeah.
exactly the same condition. Yeah.
And you've helped give me a sense of purpose in sharing through the podcasts and your encouragement with wanting me to document, even though I didn't didn't document much, but
Yeah.
because I have leaned so much on other people's stories.
Yeah.
And
Too.
um yeah, I've so much is coming up for me around all this. It feels like, one, it makes me feel like when you're not living within the bell curve and
Hmm.
you have a disease or you have a dysfunction that hasn't been able to be treated or identified or is not getting resolved, we have to step outside of the box, and that takes courage, right?
Exactly.
And also, the fear is so human. It feels like if you didn't have the fear, Nick,
Hmm.
then I may not have trusted you as much,
Right.
right? So you treaded with the courage and it coexisted with the fear, which
Yeah.
actually felt really safe for me, because otherwise it may have felt reckless. It may have felt, I felt you. I felt you, and I could really lean into your like your inner knowing, and also your stoke and your excitement. Like
Right.
it was exciting to push boundaries. And the
Or
reason
do
I'm saying this, I should share, is just because so much of Gerson therapy, or Eat Real to Heal, goes against what is recommended for CF, right?
everything.
That's why I'm saying the courage piece, because almost everything we did was what they would call a death sentence.
Yes. Well, and that piece I want to say around that is that um there was excitement on my part. There always is when I get a new client, to be like, okay, like, sometimes it's around the science of the food. Will it work for that particular condition? But other times it's the science of the human. Like, will they be able to actually physically do the therapy? Like, will they willingly, like, let go of their limitations, create the behavior change that they need to do, set up the systems in their home?
Oh my goodness.
That's
Yeah.
an even bigger part, right? Than even will the food heal. Like, in a lot of cases, most cases, the food does heal.
Yeah.
But it's whether the human being themselves will allow themselves to do it. But then there was the element of, like, this is a brand new disease for me. I didn't really know much about it. And I had to research, and it was diving into the science and the research, which we saw in the research. I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, Zoe, like, they're telling you to do this, but the science around CF says you shouldn't,
Oh my
you should
God.
do the opposite. So
Yeah.
that was that, I mean, it's not shocking to me in a lot of ways, because I've seen it with
Mhm.
other conditions, but it
Mhm.
was with yours in particular, because we're dealing with, a shortened lifespan here. And why the hell are the doctors recommending things that the CF research was actually saying, oh, like, that's not what's happening.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we
Whew.
did it.
We did it. Here I
We
am.
did it.
So I guess back to your question before I decided that it might be a good idea just to share a little bit about CF. So I did it. I did I get Gerson therapy under the
Yeah.
umbrella of Eat Real to Heal with Nick support. I did it for 2.5 years, full on, like the full spectrum therapy, 3 to 4 enemas a day, castor oil enema once a week, the up to 13 juices a day, all the supplementation, hypernutrification with all the foods,
Yeah.
um, the full meal deal
Yeah.
for 2.5 years. And um, there's so many nuances throughout that. We could have a whole episode based on the different phases of that. But in general, um, the first year of it was so profound. Like
Mm,
the first 6 months, the amount that I released out of my digestive tract in terms of the amount of infection and mucus, I have footage of that
yeah.
to go, holy cripes, like that lived inside of me. And I have the opportunity to get rid of that all the time now.
Yeah.
What would happen to me if that lived inside of me? Like, ugh, right? And
Well,
that lived inside of me for so long. Just one example. Yeah.
and I just want to go into a little bit more detail for people
Yeah.
around this, because I think until you see the pictures and the images, and you would send me
Mhm.
videos. And I always ask my clients, please send me what comes out in your coffee enema when you're doing the liver detox, because I want to see what's in the toilet. And it's amazing what comes out, like everything from
Mhm.
parasites to lots of mucus. And in your particular case,
Mhm.
if you can imagine, like, what CF does in the body, a lot of people thinks it just affects the lungs, but
Mhm.
and that's because, yes, like, obviously, if you can't get breath and air into the lungs because they're coated in mucus, then that's when we have these secondary infections, and you need to breathe. Our breath is our life, right? So, but we forget with CF, and a lot of people don't know that it affects every vesicle in the body. Anywhere where there's a tube, anywhere where there's, essentially the whole body starts
A
to,
membrane.
a membrane, exactly, a membrane, which is your entire body. And so it fills with mucus and stops your body from being able to do its natural functions. So when
Mhm.
Zoe sent me these videos, it, like, of this mucus, it looked like literally the entire lining of your intestinal tract, dark
Mhm.
brown, um, thick, like a coating basically, that, like, slipped out of you.
Yeah, and many variations of that.
Yeah,
Not just, but yeah, yeah, like leathered skin,
yeah, coming out.
meters
It's
and
just,
meters and meters of infection. And then we could go on and on, but I have so many images and videos if anyone wants to see. Parasites, mucus, like thick jelly mucus filling like this much at a time for those first 6 months to a year. Like that was profound. And it's so wild. What I really noticed in that Gerson therapy, the biggest gift that the biggest surprise gift that Gerson therapy gave me was a new level of mental health that I didn't realize how much the impact of my digestive tract and the infections was actually impacting me.
Wow.
So the amount of clarity, the amount of access I had to my pleasure, even my sex life, the amount of capacity I had for presence,
Mm.
to know myself and feel more connected to myself. Like I felt so expanded from Gerson therapy beyond physically doing so much better the first year. Um, and and amidst all that, I was home most days doing like training like a freaking marathon every day, spending, an extra 8 to 10 hours a day on top of being a mom doing that. And I still felt like that.
Yeah.
So that was my first year. Each year has its own flavors, but yeah, it was really, really profound. Just how much, the mind body connection to experience it on that level was really wild. Yeah.
Yeah, and people write these books about the mind body connection and how the gut is so instrumental for our mental health and how it's linked to, mood disorders, brain fog, our serotonin and dopamine levels, all of that. Like you've heard the science in the other podcasts, for
Mhm.
listeners out there. But I think for in a situation like this, when you have like leathery, thick mucus layers of all different types that have been caking your digestive system and then stopping the production of all of these, hormones and nutrients and everything from getting to the brain too, then
Mhm.
like it's a whole new level to live like that and then to be have that clarity. One thing I just want to bring
Mhm.
forward, because I don't know if we covered it in the last podcast, but which a lot of my clients have said, but you said it perfectly, was that doing the enemas, which, it takes about 20 minutes a day, right? Like maybe
Oh,
30
it
minutes.
takes me more.
It
Yeah.
takes you more.
Yeah.
Okay, so 20 to 30 minutes in a day, let's say on
Mhm.
average,
For
sometimes
one. Yeah.
for one. But
Mhm.
I loved how you framed it when you said, it's like a spiritual experience. It's having
Oh,
conversations with
yeah.
God on the bathroom
Right.
floor. And I just want you to talk about that because that is something so many of
Oh,
my clients say.
yeah. You know what? I do feel a little bit emotional thinking about the amount of times I've been on the bathroom floor. It's been close to like 1,700 times or something in the past over 2 years. Um, yeah, when you're that devoted to the bigger purpose and you start to fuel your body to that level and commit to yourself, devote yourself so much to what you know can be true. And you lay down for me on the bathroom floor, and it's like it started becoming my prayer and my practice to like lay there and really allow the medicine. And I would just, I was just downloading lots of poetry and thoughts. Nick and I said so many, we call them podcasts, text each other. And eventually I told Nick, I said, I'm going to write a book. It's called Conversations with God on the Bathroom Floor. And God at the time, actually, like God only became symbolic for me through my enemas. Before it was spirit, Mother Nature, higher being, universal intelligence. But God was really irrelevant, but it became God. And I really look forward. Now I'm only doing one enema a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I really look forward to that reprieve. Is that the word? Reprieve?
Yeah.
I'm on day one of my period and my brain is like, whoo. I really look forward to that little retreat
Yeah.
with me and my enema bucket. Yeah, it's not a chore for me at all. And
No.
Mike too, he loves doing it when he does them, like once or twice a week.
Well, and
So
that's for me
yeah.
as well. And I mean, I've been doing them for 20 years and or almost 20 years. My husband as well, even one of my kids that like they were like, I'm doing them. And
Mm,
that was huge for me because they said that they would never do them. But when you feel your body building up waste and like a lot of people I want to We just had a comment on one of our Facebook posts where, the person, I love when people who maybe haven't been sick or haven't used a method like this to heal and seen their body reverse a disease, or where they've studied a little bit of science, and then they say things like, well, your body detoxifies, it already has a liver and kidneys and lungs and skin, and it detoxifies naturally every day, you shouldn't have to do any additional detox methods. This is all garbage, don't believe. Like, this is, the person was going off, and I was like, and I thought about you, because I was like, well, tell that to somebody with cystic fibrosis whose body genetically can't eliminate, is constantly building up this mucus membrane, this lining in every part of their body. And you tell them that we have detox organs that don't need to detoxify, that we can just do it naturally on our own, just through nothing. And then I thought about people who get liver cirrhosis and people who get pneumonia and people who get skin rashes. Like, these are our detox pathways no longer functioning. And then they're spouting their idea, and how harmful that could be to a lot of people, right? Because you could have said, no, I'm not going to do this. I don't like coffee enemas. That's weird. Why would I do that? But you chose to learn the science around them. You chose to try them. And then, and then from that, you're seeing the results that you're getting, amongst lots of other things.
And a couple things came up for me when you said that. One is, I mean, to say that is to say that we are not reliant on anything for health, that the body does the whole thing. But here's Gerson Therapy, who introduces Mother Nature as our major resource through juicing and food as medicine and coffee, organic coffee beans. It's just the mind that's limiting the notion of putting the coffee in the enema, right?
Yeah, up the bum,
So to say
which is
that
the opposite end of the mouth, by the way.
So it just, to me, is, yeah, of course, our bodies are so brilliant. And that's the whole thing. Like, Gerson Therapy is relying on those detoxification pathways 100%.
Yeah.
And it's leaning into the power of Mother Nature, because she is our greatest resource.
Exactly.
Without her, we wouldn't be able to process. So it's a bit ridiculous to me that to me, it just can't, you can't have one function without the other.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure Mother Nature could function without humans, but
and to say that in the context of our society that we live in now, where we're just pumping 80,000 chemicals, into the planet every single year, and we're eating these processed, refined, I can't even call them foods, because they're not food. Like, food is supposed to nourish us. It's supposed to fill us up. It's supposed to heal us, comfort us, all of, these foods, but we don't eat that anymore. We eat the stuff that's anti-Mother Nature. Like, it's like, let's synthesize everything and let's make it unnatural and give it to you and just make it taste good. And we call that food, but we really need to change the language around that. And yeah, if we grew up eating real food, we might not need these additional detox, systems like the coffee enema or milk thistle, but that's even a natural, liver detoxifier. And so, and then of course, if we have, we look at you with having cystic fibrosis and all the other individuals whose detox pathways get impacted because of a genetic condition, it's, we need to pull those in.
Yeah, that's where we're resourceful, which is amazing.
Exactly. Which is amazing. And you are very resourceful. So to give individuals, before we dive into our maybe next year, what happened after that, maybe the year before you started, if you could just talk a little bit about, when you were following the doctor's directives, you were listening to what they were saying, you have CF, you're understanding this condition, but like, you were in the hospital a lot with secondary infections and on a lot of antibiotics. And what was that like
yeah.
for you?
So I initially, prior to the diagnosis, was 12 to 15 times a year in there for 3 to 6 days with pneumonia and sepsis and infections, and just so much, to the point where it's absolutely ridiculous that it didn't get spotted sooner. so much neglect in that whole experience for sure. I probably was on 60 bouts of antibiotics in 3 years. And I'm talking like strong mamas, strong antibiotics, both taken orally and through a nebulizer. I found out that I had early on in my diagnosis that I was carrying a couple of the bacteria that are one of them the worst ones considered, called Pseudomonas. And so at the time, they had prescribed me this cased-in program, which is an inhaled antibiotic, and you do it 3 times a day. It's about an hour each session to do it. Well, no, it's an exaggeration, maybe 45 minutes. It felt like 2 hours. And I would breathe it in every day, take a month on, a month off. So that was like 3 hours every day on top of all my other protocol. And so I started doing that. And on day 3, my body speaks so strongly to me. This was the benefit of having so much neglect, is that I could never neglect myself. So I got really clear with that inner voice and that inner knowing. And I listened to her more than, and still do more than anybody else, as you know as well, Nick.
Yeah. Oh, the way you listen to your body is, if we could, can we teach that to people? Do we have
That's
to
what
like
I'm
do
doing.
that?
That's what, through the somatics.
Yeah.
Once we are able to really listen to our nervous system, know the language of our bodies, we can discern what's fear, what's trauma, what's regulation, what's dysregulation. And it's basically just clearing out the clutter, the same way that the coffee enemas detoxify, therefore purify what we can channel through universal intelligence.
Right.
So somatics to me is the answer. And I just, from my workshop, had a bunch of people saying, oh my God, I've never felt so connected to myself. And I just knew that, one was on a dating, and he just like was like, I know, all of a sudden. I just had a session with him yesterday. So yeah,
Yeah.
I really do believe it's possible for sure.
Okay. Because your ability to detect, and I just want to bring us to acetylpepsin, your ability
Oh,
to detect what is, and what is right for you is astounding, because with thousands of clients that have done this, you started to take the supplements. There's the 9 key supplements that are part of the Gerson therapy, and you took the acetylpepsin, which is meant for, building up the stomach acids, and you were like, Nick, this is not good for me. I can't take this. And I was like, really? Like, at once I was like, really? Are you sure? Like, what about it? Like, it's the acid. How do you know it's not anything else? And you're like, I just know it's this. And sure enough, it pushed me to go to the research. And what I found in the research is true for individuals with CF. They actually cannot take the acetylpepsin because of the chemical reaction it causes in their throats. And I was like, and I remember just reading that and wondering, who are you? Like, how did you do that? To know your body so well. And every single time you were always 100% accurate, and immediately after that incident, I knew I could, and no matter what you said about your body, I would 100% trust it. Whereas I know in the medical system, for example, you had been telling the CF doctors that when you get your period, just before getting your period is when you would get your infection would amp up.
Mhm.
And the doctors didn't believe you. And so when you told me that, I was like, great, I believe you. I'm going to go find out, like, what's the science behind it. And sure enough, that's when we learned that CF was a gender specific or
Mhm.
gender bias disorder disease.
Mhm.
And women get more infections than men. And it had to do with their fluctuating estrogen cycles.
Mhm. Yeah,
And you were bang on about that.
big time.
But then
Yeah.
that also showed how much neglect, again, you
Yeah.
received in the system.
Mhm. And I can speak more to that after what I was gonna complete the cycle of what I was sharing, because I've come to a new gateway with my CF team, which is pretty awesome. I don't know if I've shared that with you.
No.
Um, if, where moving pebbles feels like mountains sometimes in that system, but I'll share more another time. Back to the antibiotics I was taking, I was breathing in for Pseudomonas. I was on all this protocol, and 3 days after, my whole body said, no, this is going to kill you before it heals you. And so I was so nervous. The disease was new. I felt so I was a mother to a young boy and my partner and my mom, and I had all my family, and I felt like my decision became their decision, but I held the decision within myself, and I decided, without knowing anything other than just what my body was telling me, I stopped all of my medication that was recommended to me. And they said that Pseudomonas is not possible to get rid of. And I've never since, other than antibiotics and using hypertonic saline, used any other medications than those two. So that's been my journey. Yeah.
And that I couldn't even imagine. Like, I don't know if I could have done, like, I understand that. And that is one of the biggest decisions that a lot of individuals have, is that they're not just making the decision for themselves. So their intuition will kick in and they're like, this isn't right for me. But then they make the decision for the family, or I should do it because, what if I am wrong? And I have a responsibility to my kids and, my community. But for you to trust that, that was huge.
Yeah, it was a big moment for me, and I don't often question myself that much, but it was really big. It was a big decision, and I told them all about a month later after I had made the decision. So I let myself sit with it, and I never wavered. And and then my mom and both Mike, they know me, and they said, you know what? We know how much you know your body. And my mom said, of course it's scared, like I'm scared shitless, but
Yeah.
like I've always, how can I not trust you?
Yeah.
What you know about your body. So I had the support right away. But that was, yeah, a big one. And again, stepping outside of the box, because I really do think, when they're looking at support for CF, they're looking at such short-term support, because cystic fibrosis, the long life, what's that called? Lifespan is
Yeah,
quite
life
low.
expectancy. Yeah.
Life expectancy. And so now it's getting longer and longer, but a lot of the care models, in my experience, are short fixes, which actually then come back around as being more damaging in the end. And so again, it's that courage to just trust yourself and step outside of the box. Because there are so many more resources and opportunities for everything. That's what I've learned. Yeah.
Hi, it's Scott from Team Richer Health, and I'm super excited to share our team's 20-year vision. We will be building Canada's very first chronic disease reversal and mental health disorder reversal hotel and wellness center right here in the heart of the Cowichan Valley, British Columbia. This will be a state-of-the-art, 100% plant-based, integrative health facility, a place for education, healing, regenerative tourism, and sustainable community building. It's more than a wellness center. It's a mission designed to help people around the world reverse chronic disease, overcome anxiety and depression, and return to their families healthy and thriving. This project will also create meaningful work and a lasting impact within a local community charged up for this project. But grand visions require big support. That's why we're inviting passionate investors who believe in healing and global wellness to join us as founding partners in bringing this first of its kind project to life. We would love your support in helping us spread the word. And if you know someone who's passionate about creating real life impact and might be interested in investing, we would love to connect. You'll find all the details in the show notes, or you can reach out to us directly at richerhealth.ca. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being part of this vision.
Yeah. And what you said about individuals living longer with CF. So we have we keep coming up with these new treatments and plans and medications to help people live longer. But the question we have to ask is, are they living well longer? And we want people to live longer. We want them to have this amazing life. But one of the things with CF that you taught me is that the longer individuals are living with CF, then they're often living with kidney damage and a lot of other conditions that go along with living longer with CF as well. So it almost makes a case for, it's more important than ever that individuals, like for me anyway, turn to food as medicine so that and especially a therapy similar to this, or like this, something that's going to help keep your organs functioning really well so you can live longer and live well.
Mm-hmm.
Have those two go hand in hand.
Yeah, 100%. You know,
Yeah.
and then in all of that cycle on top of food is medicine, is the emotional, mental, somatic well-being, that without, like, that's where there's just so many pieces
Yeah.
involved. But if we slow down, if this even makes sense, but it is to me in this moment, you know, if we slow down the wheel as people who are on a, you know, mission to heal, which is a bit of a rhyme, then just allowing the way that we live our day-to-day life be the resource and ask the questions that we need in that moment, then we will start to touch into all of the resources, if that makes sense. It's a big, it's a big image. You can keep digging, but what I'm trying to say is it's really easy to get really overwhelmed, right?
Yes.
When we think about Gerson therapy is relentless if you do the full therapy. That is all encompassing. And then all of a sudden, as someone who's really unwell, it's like, okay, food as medicine is one piece, and then also healing your trauma is another piece.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, getting a good night's sleep is another piece. Financials.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just saying, if we slow that down and we just work through what's in front of us moment to moment, then it doesn't become a lot to handle. Makes sense? It shows, yeah.
Yeah, no, and that is the piece. It's, again, you know, I use analogy of peeling back the layers of the onion, but the more you peel back, the more it's exposed. And then you're like, oh my gosh, there's another element to it. Like, it's never ending. Healing doesn't have a finite end date either. It's not like, if I do this for this amount of time, then it's done. It's that we go deeper. And, you know, we're going to definitely dive into the somatic side that is threaded through everything. And it opens up a can of worms in a way when we do start healing in this way, and we don't just start relying on a medical system to say, well, do it this one way, and if that doesn't work, then we have a second backup plan and a third backup plan, but then after that we have no other options. But it means encompassing the whole being, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, past, present, future, which is actually an indigenous way of being. You know, that is what the medicine wheel is all about. If, you know, people don't know about the medicine wheel, it is looking at, you know, these all sides to ourselves, past, present, and future as well. And what do we need to do? And we have to heal all of that to bring everything into balance. One piece, as you were talking about that and talking about resources, is, you know, it painted this picture that, you know, you have this incredibly supportive husband who is like, and I know not all days are easy in any relationship, but you know, you have a supportive husband.
100%. Yeah.
And you said, okay, yeah, I'm on board, because it does take that. And I have clients whose, you know, partners are like, why are we doing this? You know, where they don't trust the intuition of their partner who is saying, I want to do this. And just, you know, and it made me think that a lot of pieces had to be lined up to allow you to be able to do this as well. But I also don't want to take away from the fact that you also said, no, we're doing this. Or
yeah, all of that coexists in there. I feel like, again, I just go back to how connected are we to ourselves? Because if you know something is the way and your life is on the line, or your quality of life is on the line even, then that's a non-negotiable. And if you stand in that truth and you own that truth, then those in your relational field, your partner, your husband, your mother, your children, they just more naturally co-regulate and embody that with you. But it's when we don't know ourselves, or we're disconnected from ourselves for very valid reasons, because we've been unwell, we're over hustled, we're chronically stressed, we have unhealed trauma, all of the things, right? But if we really trust ourselves and we're embodied in who we are, then those in our field don't have as much leeway to say anything other than support us.
Yeah.
And it becomes a part of their purpose and their mission. So it's all of those things. And I was unwavering And Mike knows that about me. Right? In relationship to this, and he loves that about me as much as many days he's like, oh my gosh, But yeah, he is like so along for the ride and such a believer, for sure. And I'm so freaking grateful for him, for sure. And my kids, oh my gosh, my kids too. Yeah.
They're amazing how they like watching them through this. And I was so grateful for that time when I could be in Palm Springs with you and just seeing, your family and navigating this therapy and, what that was like, even though that was a hard time, I know for you as well. But I want to jump before we get there, because that's jumping too far ahead.
Yeah.
Second
Rain me in.
year, the second year.
Okay.
So you have this year of healing, releasing so much out of your digestive system in your body and detoxifying and getting energy back and your vibrancy back. And then we move into the second year.
I really should have documented this, Nick, because
do you
it's
want
really
me to?
kind of floaty for me. I'll start by saying kind of the overarching experience. So the first year we did 6 months on our own without any support. And then we did 6 months with amazing support with Mary Lynn. And we had a sitter for the kids. So that was essential. And then after Mary Lynn left, just after about a year of doing the full therapy, like 98% adherence to the therapy. Marianne left and we decided financially it would be better to we couldn't, our home equity. So we took out a line of credit to make the therapy happen. And then
that's an important thing to tell people.
Yeah. So we put a line of credit against our house in order to do the therapy. And then also eventually that ran out. And then my mom helped contribute as well at some point. But it got to a point where the line of credit was going so fast because I'm not able to make an income at the same time. And so
I want to talk about what that is, like the economic toll of having CF in our society right now. But
you want to talk about it now?
No, I meant like right now, as in right now in this time in place in 2024.
It's massive. Yeah.
Yes. But so your mom helps you out. You have a line of credit on your house that's dwindling.
Well, my mom hadn't helped out yet, but after the first year, Mary Lynn left, we did it on our own, and that's when things started to get rocky. I ended up getting really sick and I was doing it all. Mike was helping me as well, but not only creating the therapy, like mixing all the concentrates, washing all the produce, ordering all the produce, but doing the therapy at the same time. So now it's an extra like 13 hours a day. And the kids were at home and I was being a mother at the same time.
And you are a mother that is present with your kids. I just want everyone to know that, like very present with your children.
I try. But I basically just burned the candle at both ends. And looking back on it, I should never have prioritized doing on our own and the loss of finances. I should have just kept going. What I should have done is just decrease the therapy and did what I do now, which is, 4 to 5 juices a day, 1 enema a day. So I could make it more tolerable.
Yeah.
And
people, I just want to jump in, the people that often do the full therapy, it's because time is not on their side. And often, for this therapy, it's for individuals that have cancer, that have been given a prognosis, the timeline is not good. So it makes sense why you were doing the full therapy, considering, you were told you had CF and 37, that's not a great prognosis. And you're trying to beat the odds. So that makes sense. And you're experimenting as well, right? Because you don't have anybody else to call on the phone and say, like, what is the best option? So, this is, you're using your body as a petri dish essentially, and your life is a petri dish in this case. So yeah, it makes sense that you would do all the actions that you took make sense because you just don't know.
Yeah. And it became a point where the financial stress became so big because I don't know if I'm ever going to really be able to bring in finances again. And we're still young in terms of our financial lifeline as a family. So there was a lot there, and I understand all her decisions, but in hindsight, which I get to now share and support with others, I would always recommend, especially with the full therapy, that support is like mandatory.
Mandatory.
Yeah, like it basically, my nervous system, I'd had a lot of unprocessed trauma. My nervous system just got so dysregulated. I already at that time, I had already defaulted into dysregulation, like sympathetic upregulation really easily. And there's many more nuances I could share about that, but it just became too much. And then I got COVID and I never really healed, and it just got really tough. So I had a year of struggling, but I carried on. I persisted with the therapy, and I don't think I should have persisted doing the full therapy. I should have, like I said, I believe it would have been more beneficial if I'd gone down to even, 8 juices, 2 enemas, to free up that extra 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Because it is so labor intensive and time intensive. Okay, there's something I have to jump in here with, because we started talking earlier about courage and fear. And that was a pivotal moment for me when you said, I'm going to do it on my own. I can do this on my own. And I was like, I don't know, like, I don't think you should, but I know I didn't say it loud enough, firmly enough, strongly enough. And it's a piece that I regret tremendously, that this is a therapy that relies on you having a caregiver, somebody who can, especially when you are in a physical position where, your strength isn't, as great, where you have to rest so your body can regenerate. You need someone who can make the juices and bring them to you so you can rest on the bathroom floor and have conversations with God and, heal and sleep when you need to sleep. And it was a moment where I was like, okay, but there was also this strength to you at the same time that I was like, okay, well, maybe she can do it on her.
Really convincing.
Oh my goodness. But I didn't trust my intuition. And I don't know if you would have listened. I don't know, if it would have.
I don't know if I would have either.
And it's hard because it's not my life, it's your life. And it's hard to know all the nuances, but it is a piece that I now know I will firmly stamp my feet on the ground and like ball my fists and hands into fists and say, no, you need help, like, to anybody else who ever decides to do that again.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I'll second that anytime you need another voice to shout that from the rooftop.
Yeah.
It's just too much. It's way, way too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the end, I don't know if we saved any money at all, because I needed that much more support and that many more IVs, and Mike needed to take that much more time off work, and yeah, terrible. Not great, but I had my eye on the tiger.
Yes, you did. Yeah. And you also had a lot happen that year on top of all of that, because your dad passed away. Your dog passed away. I remember your energy was like
my stepdad. Yeah.
Your stepdad. Sorry, your stepdad. And I remember your energy too, that you were like, you're like, I'm going places. So you like booked a trip to Australia. You were going down to Palm Springs. There was like a lot that you wanted to do, which again, I look back on that where I was like, I remember being like, I don't want her to go anywhere, because it is about having your routine and, and especially with the CF component, traveling on planes and being exposed to a lot of other individuals adds a whole other element. But of course, I don't know, but that is a second moment of regret that I have on my part, that I didn't forcefully say, no, like stay put, but here you are feeling great. Who am I to say, don't do that?
Well, I think that's really important piece, because with CF, like, a lot of people get confused, because one minute I'm like, yeah, and when I recover, I'm like positive and I feel, like, I'm like, life is good. And I can't believe, and so it's really confusing for people where we're used to living in a society where this is normal. Like, I'm like this.
Yeah.
And so just saying that, because sometimes I'm like really unwell, and then I'm like, oh, I'm better. Like, the antibiotics kicked in. I've never not gotten over anything unless I've had an antibiotic for the past like 3 years. And so when I'm good, it is convincing and I'm so positive and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I've always known that I'm going to meet a cure, that Gerson's going to help, and I'm step by step going to live into my 90s, maybe even 104. I don't care what anyone's telling me. So when I feel good, that like energy is so present in my system. And at times, that time, it was a little detrimental, but I also think there was more positive, like more gains in me leading that charge, because looking back on it, my family, as a family unit, I often feel, had I just devoted myself here for those 3 years, it would have been really tough, like the guilt, the like that weighs really heavy on me. And we all would experience that differently. But to me, that would be more of a weight, more of a body burden, that guilt now, than it would if I hadn't have just allowed my family to explore and rode that wave with them, especially since Mike's family is in Australia and we've seen them twice. We've gone there twice in over a decade. So, right. So it's just constantly weighing, and there's a lot of decisions to be made. A lot of decisions. Yeah.
So many decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a big year. And I say that was a big year as though I'm saying it for myself, but I can't even imagine, like, witnessing it was big for me. And can we talk a little bit about what it is like for an individual who has CF, who's not even doing this therapy? Just what does that look like for them to be in the medical system? Because when I was watching you when you were unwell and down in Palm Springs, and just the level of care that has to go into every single step of the day and the hours of doing the therapy, if you could just, spell that out for people, because I think it's a condition, it's a disease that a lot of people don't really know anything about. They don't know the intricacies of what it's like for somebody with CF to live this. And we also know now, I know because you taught this to me, that it is on a spectrum, and there, many different types of CF depending, which variant. But at the same time, we know that when people are living with it, it's not like living with any other disease.
No. Oh, I always feel a bit shut down with this question. I feel like but I'll give it a shot. And I'm curious as to why I get so shut down
I'm
around
curious
this
too.
question. So I'll explore that at some point, but I'm realizing that when it comes up. I realized when I just went to the washroom, I realized that I believe part of this shutdown is around just how much I've spoke to you about how we live in such an able-bodied society, and how there's always been a big part of me that really wishes that people knew what it was that I had to go through on the day-to-day often in order to just show up. Or when I do say no, I can no longer attend, or I have inconsistencies as a friend or as a practitioner, that is just really understood, because it's just a lot of emotional weight to carry being an invisible disease in such an able-bodied society. And so I'm happy to share this. And I also recognize that there's just this inner voice that is like, don't go all the way there, but it's a lot.
Well, can I ask this question?
Yeah.
Is CF, is it considered a disability?
Not CFTR, unfortunately, unless science has the capacity to identify the exact genetic variation that you have, it's not considered a disability based off your
Even though I witnessed you this past year go through hours and hours and hours a day of treatment, like, how does anybody work?
You can't.
So how can it not be classified as a disability?
Yeah.
Like, how does someone live?
I have no idea. I have no idea. And I think this is going to become it's a really relevant question now that Kafka and now that CF patients are living longer, because it has to, because it's actually impossible to be in our systems and to be able to not only make the money, but also have the financial resources for the times that we're really unwell when we can't work. So yeah, it's a really relevant and super important question, and I would love to support the CF community in establishing more around what this looks like. So I have spoken with the social worker. As a CF patient, we have a whole team. The team is very allopathic, one facing one direction. But the social worker is wonderful, and she's working on trying to figure out, loopholes in terms of creating more financial security, whether that's like tax credits or allowances in terms of reduction in my percentage of fees that I pay, whatever. So that's the only thing at this moment. But again, that's all so much time, and time is honestly our biggest lack of resource with CF, because you said, what does it entail? A typical day with CF, if we're staying on top of our protocol, is wake up, we do our breathing exercises, positive expiratory pressure, auditory drainage, do that for at least a minimum of 20 minutes. We follow that with puffing to dilate the lungs. Then we nebulize hypertonic saline solution. We spend a lot of time coughing up all the sticky mucus that is in the lungs and the throat. That's another 40 minutes. And then we nebulize apomazine, which is an enzymatic medication that breaks down the mucus in the lungs. And then that, over the next 24 hours, slowly helps the lung get a little bit thinner so that we can cough it up. Then we're just managing, supplementation. We're getting blood work so regularly, like the amount of times I spend in the lab. Like, I feel like I should have a backstage pass for the blood lab. It's really frustrating. Hours and hours. Last week I had a bronchoscopy, so they put me under, went into my lungs to check out the health of my lungs and do some washings to see if there's any new bacteria or fungus growing in there. And then I also had a sinus test at Children's Hospital Center, or Children's Hospital, to test the nitric oxide levels in my sinuses. Those are different days. And then I saw my sinus specialist, and he was going up my sinuses, taking swabs. And then I see my immunologist, who's like looking through my records and checking my blood levels, and then the hematologist, and then the endocrinologist, and then the cardiovascular. It's just on, like, because it impacts all of it. And so I spend an average of 20 hours a week, unseen hours without Gerson therapy on my disease. And then I do Gerson therapy, right? Which is now, it's, if I'm doing it, I'll know it's about, at this moment, by the time I cook the food, it's about 3.5 hours a day, the way that because I love good food.
Yes.
So it could be less, right? But it's throughout the day. So it's a lot of multitasking. And then, yeah, just really, and then, oh my gosh, just managing the amount of time I have to spend with my schedule to work everything out with my family, and then canceling it, and then so it's tough. It's really tough. And, it feels important for me for more people to know the extent of it. And I think I told you before, I said, Mike and I have decided that unless people know what CF is and how it impacts me, we're no longer interested in them being in our circle and us being in their circle, because it just impacts us so much. And if there's no compassion and empathy around how and why, then we aren't in community. So it's a new piece for me, for us.
Well, and I think that's huge, because there was, many times over the last several years where, we made plans, and then, you had to call and say, I can't, I'm unwell, I can't come. And of course we're like, no problem. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas I know I have friends that, if you cancel last minute, they're like, like really. And that's a lot of stress, because I know I feel guilty canceling, last minute. So I can't even imagine. But really, like, it's for us absolutely no challenge. But what if you have a job, right? Like, you are a somatic therapist, you're a healer, you have clients, you have, if you want to get paid to speak and go somewhere, and if you have to be in an event, but then you become unwell like a day before,
Yeah.
then or you feel yourself becoming unwell and you don't want to expose yourself to all of these individuals, then, how do you cancel that? And if you have somebody who doesn't understand, this, what CF is, then they might not be regarding you in the same way that they would be regarding somebody who has cancer, or somebody who, is paralyzed, or somebody, so it is important that people do know about this. And I think that's a strong stance that you're taking.
Mhm.
Say,
Yeah.
this is a circle and who's allowed in my circle.
Yeah, for
And so the
sure.
one piece that
Mhm.
I remember when we were planning something, and I remember I was like, it's actually no problem if you cancel, because we'll just come and we'll juice for you. We'll make your enemas. You
Oh,
get
yeah.
sleep all
Yeah.
day. And I'm like, don't
Yeah.
worry. We'll still keep the event
Mm.
going. We'll just bring it to you and we'll just take care of you on all levels. Right. And what if we just did that for people, like dropped
Mhm.
everything and just said, no worries. Like, let's just make healthy
Mhm.
food and be together.
Mhm.
Watch you
Well,
sleep.
yeah, and I'm so fortunate to have my friends in my circle, because I wouldn't have friends because of how little I have been able to be in other people's environments or show up the way that I used to these past few years. So my friendships have really relied on me opening myself up to receiving more, and
Yeah.
also my friends' loyalty towards me and what I need this past few years, which has been so healing. That's also been a massive gift with Gerson, right? Gerson is so many pieces, right? It's really about remembering and where and how we orient ourselves and our lives, like what do we value? And so that was a bit of a digression, but it felt necessary in that moment. Yeah, to feel that, to say that. Yeah.
And now, yeah, no, it is important, because so many times, and people will discount it, and you read things online about the Gerson therapy, and they'll say it's too hard, or it takes up too much time, or it's too expensive, or it's like just so many things. But the gifts that you get from doing it, I know what it's meant for our life over the last 18 years, and it has brought the most beautiful people into our world, like you, for
Mm-hmm.
example, and my
Mm.
kids, and Lori, and Mary Lynn. And it's
Kristen.
amazing for our family now, because when I go to my friends' houses and talk about like choosing who's in your circle, I never have to worry about what I eat, when I go there, because I know it's
Mm.
always going to be just beautiful, healing, wholesome foods, created with love, and where that's the most important thing. It's not all the other, hoopla, like going to the bars and dancing, or having to go away and do things, right? It really is centered in the kitchen. Most of, my relationships with my friends now.
Totally. Yeah. I love it. Mike's always like, you know your peeps, babe.
Yeah, exactly.
The buffets that show up in our gatherings are just like incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just you touched on just the kids, the gift of our children growing up with that as the norm.
Yeah.
Like it's so incredible just the way Jude, his relationship to food and Mother Nature because of it is just incredible. I'm just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, what a gift. And Sequoia, both of them watching me devote myself so fully to my health, to know that outside of the box is possible. And to them, it's not even outside of the box. And Sequoia wants to do enemas. She's like, me, mommy, now. Jude's not into the enemas, but Sequoia really wants.
She really wants to try one.
She
Well, I
does.
never thought my kids would do them. And, my daughter had surgery. Sadie had surgery on her elbow, and she had to have two surgeries back to back when she broke her arm. And she was so constipated from all the medicine and the general anesthetic. And she was like so uncomfortable, and she had never experienced that, because she's had bowel movements since day one, but she's grown up eating this way. And amazing bowel movements, no problem. And so she was like, Mom, right away. She's like, enema, Mom. And and this is what we actually did for thousands of years. We wouldn't allow people to be constipated or have chronic diarrhea. We would say, no, let's heal the digestive system, and often enemas was a part of that. And it was just nice to see her, yeah, just opt for that. And right away, it took like not even 15 minutes. We didn't do a coffee enema, just like a regular,
Chamomile,
yeah, and
saline, yeah.
a saline. And it was, and she was fine. It was great. And
Mm,
but it's nice to see my kids, because my kids are teenagers versus still being, in your case, quite young. And
mm,
now my kids, they're preparing healthy food for themselves, and it's beautiful to see that, and that they're going to give that to
so,
their kids and their grandkids. And
mhm.
it's a gift
So
that keeps
big,
on giving.
especially, yeah, and especially in our food system today, like you said, a lot of the food isn't even food. I often think of like we need like 4 or 5 words for food at this moment.
Yes,
With
right.
what food actually is. And I also was thinking, I've been reflecting on just the importance of like how so many people's bowels are so slow moving. And I never really realized the impact that reabsorption of that waste has on our health. And I feel like it's actually a lot of what's being defined as idiopathic conditions or fibromyalgia. I know it's never one thing. There's a myriad of things likely adding up to those, how people are experiencing their health. But slow bowels, the more I experience it, because slow bowels are a big part of CF. And a lot of my clients who have trauma, slow bowels is a big piece of trauma, especially when we're in the functional freeze or freeze state, shutdown, collapse. And it's so big. Like, so just even eliminating and moving the bowels at least weekly, getting all that muck out,
Mhm.
whoa, like that could be the answer. And that's the thing, there can be the simplest of answer for what feels like the most complicated and challenging experience. That's what I realized. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I've experienced that in myself as well. Um, with having slow peristalsis, it's something like constipation was a part of my life for a long time, up until I discovered food as medicine, and then was fortunate to discover Gerson therapy. But it was food that kept things, regulated, and how important that was. But I've seen when things get backed up, and when you see it, when your body starts releasing all of this stuff, that you're like, whoa, that is, how does that much waste come out of your system?
Oh my goodness.
So much. But you could just look at images online, and you see people's colons that have like sticky bowel, and where like feces is stuck in there forever. And and when their colon's shrinking and it's dehydrated, and and I have clients that don't have bowel movements for 9 days at a time, or the opposite of that, when they have bowel movements 14 times a day, and it's
Yeah.
loose, it's diarrhea. So
Mhm.
and there's no absorption of nutrients when that's happening, and then the diseases that come from that. So regulating, yeah,
Mhm. So
food,
big. We
so
could
big.
touch on so many. The more we're chatting at the beginning, I was like, every piece, every question, every curiosity could just be a whole couple hours.
Oh,
You
100%,
know,
100%.
yeah, yeah.
So now we're in our third year, and
Mm.
you have gone through so much learning in this part. I have gone through so much learning through you, through
Oh my
witnessing
God.
you navigate your health, knowing how the warm weather is so good for you and the drier weather is good for you.
Mhm.
Getting to Palm Springs, but then also what you discovered in Palm Springs when you were down there, which is the medical system. And that's a big piece that I want to touch on there too,
Mhm.
just the standard of care that you receive down there compared to here.
Mhm. Um, yeah, so it got to a point where I was so unwell, and the cold and flu season was actually one of the worst I heard last year that has been in a long, long time
Oh, wow.
for everyone, not just CF patients. So we went down. My mom has a home in Palm Springs, just outside of Palm Springs. So we went there just for me to dry out my lungs, to allow the sunlight, vitamin D, and a lot of rest time for mama, the space for me to actually do the healing, because I was so unwell, right? I was like 89 pounds then. I looked very differently. And I had so much pneumonia in my lungs, and nothing was shifting. I was just on antibiotic after antibiotic. So we went down to the States, and mostly just to get the sun. And then slowly we started to recognize that there was a way to, not at a big cost, actually get really good care in the United States. Like, go figure, we had no idea. And so, for instance, I was really unwell and had so much lung pain one night, extreme lung pain. We went to urgent care, and one urgent care visit with an x-ray on the spot with a prescription cost me $225 US. for like 4 hours of care.
What?
Okay.
How is that possible?
Usually I would wait for that x-ray forever, right? And it all happened there in this like office where it was very clean. They were really respectful of keeping distance, and it was, yeah, incredible. So that started there. And then the man recommended, because of my CF, he recommended, the doctor there at the urgent care center recommended that I get a resident doctor because I was an intern. I was coming in from Canada. And he said it was like, I can't quote him directly, but it was a way around, not if you go to the hospital in the States, it's really expensive. But if you go and you get care and someone that actually knows you there, then he said there's so many roundabout ways to avoid more cost and just have way better streamlined care that's way more thorough. So I went and met a resident doctor, and that was like $180. I had a CT scan in a matter of like 2 days. That CT scan, I think, was $150 for a CT scan.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. I waited over a year, even with CF, to get a CT scan one time.
That is,
Which is rare. Yeah, I know. I should say it doesn't always take that long with Canada, but depending on what
it can
doctor,
take
it's a
months.
cardiovascular, for the heart doctor, right? Cardiologist, it was a year. So anyways, yeah, I just slowly started to notice the level of care, the amount of presence, the amount of curiosity and inquisitiveness, the amount of like interest in my alternative therapies, right? There were so many factors, and I was like, wow, it was such just way, way better care. And then we talked about the cost of CF and not being well. So for us, the cost, this extra $1,800 over 4 months could have actually been $180,000 in Canada, because Mike not have been able to work. We would have had more cost with IVs. Anyway, so the cost trade-off is like, you can't compare it when you have, a disease that's so impactful in my life.
Right.
So we recognized, well, we will never, if I'm ever that unwell again, we will always go to the States. I'm now set up with a resident doctor. I have access to the pulmonary clinic. I've got the urgent care center right there. And then my mom had a woman that helps care for the home when she's gone, saw me one day and she said, I'm really sorry you're so unwell. I heard you're unwell. And she said, have you heard of Dr. Johnson out of Desert Longevity Institute? And I was like, no, I haven't. And right away I felt the ping, the inner knowing. I was like, this is happening right now randomly. She walked in the door. I was walking to the room to go lie down. And as she just shared, my body was like, ping. So I booked in with Dr. Johnson, slowly got to know Dr. Johnson, started doing more heavy metal testing, stuff that was really impacting my immune system, started getting a really thorough workup, started introducing hydrogen peroxide IVs, doing chelation therapy because of all the aluminum that was found in my tissues. So I'm curious about that, actually, the heavy metal testing with which I know you're supposed to do before Gerson, and I did do, but I did it in Mexico, and it obviously wasn't great, very great diagnostic test. And so I just started was doing all the things with this doctor, and he was a hormone specialist. And at one point he said, Zoe, I really think I think you should consider this. Your symptoms. So at the time I had really bad anxiety for a year, for the first time in my life. I had developed panic attacks, heart palpitations. Oh my God, I felt so terrible. Like I was so scared of dying. I felt like death was so close. I was so scared to fall asleep at night. It felt like my body was shutting down. And I had so much, I don't love the word anxiety as a SE practitioner. It's just like disorganized energy and fear in my system that was so valid. And so he said, all of your symptoms, including the anxiety and this flightiness and your lack of capacity to focus and, your moods and all these things, like all of these things to me are circling back to hormones. And it reminded me of like how we get so locked into our identity with CF that a lot of my care forgets that I'm also a whole human.
Exactly.
And I knew this to the point where I often don't even tell practitioners that I have CF because I don't want them to go, well, you have that because this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it just reminded me of the importance of investing in all of me beyond the CF. And so we did a bunch of hormone testing, and the hormones came back so low. And he does the hormone testing based off 2 hours of going through questionnaires, and he knew me. So he was really diligent in terms of what I was tested for. Those tests were private, so it cost me, I think, I'm sharing the cost in case people are watching and have interest. I think the cost for me was like $600 to get like over 20 tests done.
Wow.
So not bad at all. And the diagnostics and the testing that he did were so good.
Yeah.
So it turned out I had really low progesterone. Like his range was like 20 to 30. I don't know what the exact measurement was. And I had 0.30. My testosterone was so low. He's like, of course you're not fighting infections. Progesterone, of course you're losing so much weight and you feel so anxious and you can't rebuild and recover after infections. My estrogen was okay, which was cool. We didn't do anything with estrogen. I was a little bit lower than the norm. And then DHEA, which for memory and mental health and my strength, just my tenacity and my sense of character and being me. And so he ended up supplementing me. In 4 days, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Such a game changer. And I had said for that past year, I had said, I know something else is here and it's so easy to correct. And I knew
You
that.
had been saying that. You were like, what is it? Yeah.
And all of my signs and symptoms were so classic of being low on all of those things. And I had seen multiple doctors here. And I had been to the hospital so many times, and my symptoms were textbook low progesterone, low testosterone, low DHEA, but we're really limited in the doctors don't have the privilege, a lot of them, to just test for what they know to be true. I'm learning.
No, because, and that's the thing is that unless you specifically go into your doctor and say, and you almost have to say, like, often we go in and we say, I'm not feeling well.
Mhm.
Fix me. What is it? We say, what is it? But you almost need to go in and say, hey, listen, like, I need to know the levels on this. I need to know the levels on this. But then that requires us almost being the investigative researcher, doctor, which is really what we need to do. But then when you don't know what you don't know, you don't ask.
Mhm.
So, and how are we, maybe through this storytelling, it gives people a little bit of a glimpse into the different things that they can ask for. But then if you don't know, and I didn't know, because often I don't see my clients that have, low progesterone, low testosterone, and often they have an overabundance of estrogen, which we're now bringing it down to normal levels. So the question I have for you, which I've been dying to ask you because we haven't been able to connect on this, why were your levels so low? Like, why was your aluminum so high? Have you gotten an answer on that?
Not a full answer. The tests that I used specifically for the heavy metals said something was off with the sulfur conjugation in my body. That isn't a definitive diagnostic, though. It's a potentiality. So I'm curious about it, and I've asked Dr. Johnson, and I'd love to dive into that more for sure, but we don't know. I think the easiest kind of blanket statement around that right now would be just the amount of infections I've had. Like, I was so depleted.
Right.
And so, when we think about survival, hormones are not needed for survival. To a certain extent, like I was surviving, but I wasn't thriving, right?
Yeah.
And so all of the survival mechanisms, the stuff that allows us to thrive, like reproductive health, fully digesting our food, even like a really strong immune system at some point is thriving. But when the body is undergoing that much stress and that much infection and has a disease, the body basically just goes, okay, well, right now, all we need to do is just get by moment to moment. Like, we don't need a ton of reproductive hormones. She doesn't need her cycle. She's, all of these things. That would be my guess. And maybe that's totally incorrect even from a medical standpoint, but that's my hunch.
Well,
Yeah.
and and in a healthy body, especially if we're eating a plant-based diet, because I always think like, is it because you've been doing Gerson for 3.5 years? Is it because, I have all these questions. I was like, oh, is there an accumulation of aluminum coming from somewhere in your diet, or is it your body's ability to not be able to clear the aluminum? Did that happen before or during? And is it because of the extensive, medication load that you had to take, like all the antibiotics, and when the body's unwell, obviously it's not going to be clearing. Like I have a bazillion questions. The DHEA I can answer because our body doesn't convert a lot of, ALA into DHA, which is, so there's certain things that I'm going to be diving into this to be curious about it. But yeah, and it's true when you have multiple things happening, it's hard to narrow it down. It's hard to narrow it down even just in an individual that doesn't have CF.
Yeah. And I think that the majority of our health challenges never narrows down to one thing anyways.
Never does.
It's confounded, a bunch of different layers of slight dysfunction, a little bit more dysfunction here, a little bit more dysfunction here, adds up to be a lot in terms of how we're experiencing ourselves, and then we diagnose it as a disease. Yeah, I could say so much right now, but I feel like that's a bit of a rabbit hole. So
it is a rabbit hole, but it's a rabbit hole I'm going to be going down.
Yeah.
Now that we've,
what I feel is really relevant though is that there are some universal things where I believe that they're pillars for all of us, especially women. And I do know that it's a really common trend for women to have low hormones right now, especially the ones that I mentioned. And I have heard a number of women that have also been really supported by going on HRT. I'm not going to say that that's what everybody needs, and don't even know the long-term consequences of that at this point. But I think it's a really relevant thing for women to look into if they're experiencing constant health challenges and they are living a healthy lifestyle with good quality nutrification, and they've got their detoxing in, and they're able to access down regulation, meaning that parasympathetic system where they can actually engage with themselves and with others. It feels like hormones is a really, really big thing. And I'm so curious about the why. And we could materialize an answer that I think would be really correct if we had another hour together.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's to show the big piece about this. There's two really big pieces about this. Number one is your tenacity, right? Like you're just like, okay, three pieces. You listen to that ping when that woman said, because everyone's always like, oh, you should try this and read this book and do this therapy and try this supplement. But you listen to that ping and you followed it through. And the results that you've got have been outstanding, like, to see you glowing and thriving. There's that piece, your tenacity to keep going. So many individuals, they're told like you have a condition and humans are meant to thrive and survive and keep fighting and to stay alive. But I often see a lot of people that will just accept whatever their doctor tells them, like this is terminal, or this can't be reversed, or this is CF, this is why you feel this way. And as opposed to your tenacity to say, no, like I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And it's a piece that people need to hang on to. Like you have to keep advocating for yourself. And there's that element, and the ability to be open and to say yes, right? Like, yes, I'm going to try that. Yes, I'm going to do this.
And no.
And yes, and no.
And no.
Right. That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Scott from Team Richer Health. I'm excited to share that we've partnered with Go Parity Canada to raise $44,000 to open our next Green Mustache Cafe on Vancouver Island, inside an upcoming beautiful wellness center in the Cowichan Valley. This funding will help us cover the early costs, staffing, sourcing, operations, so we can keep serving medicine on a plate and bring healing food to even more people. When we opened our first cafe in Whistler back in 2013, our mission was bold: to address the chronic disease epidemic with food as medicine. Since then, we've grown to 4 locations been awarded as Best Healthy Food in Whistler for 12 years in a row, published books, and worked with hospitals, agencies, companies, and global wellness brands, even Tony Robbins' team, and most importantly, helped thousands reclaim their health with 100% organic, plant-based meals. Now we're ready to grow again, and you can be part of it. This is an investment with returns made simple through GoParity's impact investing platform. If you believe in food as medicine and want your money to make a real difference, click the link in the show's notes to learn more and invest today. Thanks for listening and for believing in this mission.
So we've been together for a while here, and I would like to bring the conversation through to your skill set as a somatic practitioner. And congratulations, you
Finally,
yes, which is very impressive.
a decade later.
Yes, but many, children you have had,
Mm,
living with CF, doing the Gerson therapy, like again, talk about tenacity, like you completed that amazing program and you've been doing this work so beautifully with people. So how does that somatic experiencing come into your healing that you've done with yourself? And can you explain what it is? Because there's a lot of people who still don't know what it is. And if you can explain that, and then maybe, I don't know, leave people with something that they can do so that they can experience more of this for themselves, or how can they bring this into their world? Three-part
I think this
question.
is a whole other podcast, or
It is a whole other
jamming.
podcast. But
So I'm gonna keep it really simple because that's actually really important when we're talking about somatics. So somatic healing, which the modality that I use from Peter Levine is called somatic experiencing. And the belief is that trauma lives in our tissues and in our body. And for so long, we have been using talk therapy and psychology as a way to unravel trauma and pain that's living inside of how we experience ourselves through our mental health, our physical health, our relational health, and the way that we can actually show up in the world. Somatic healing is now revolutionized, where I believe the true healing lives, which is in our tissues through specifically our autonomic nervous system. So it's a bottom-up approach, which is actually pretty radical after having however many years of top-down approaches. And so one really important piece with SE is understanding and knowing the polyvagal theory created by Stephen Porges, or founded by Stephen Porges in the 90s. And this theory is a sister science to somatic experiencing. And that's really relevant because in essence, the polyvagal theory identifies that the vagus nerve, the longest wandering nerve in the human body, is basically in control of how we experience ourselves and the world, and how we show up, how we think, how we feel, what emotions we have, what sensations we have in our body, and how we behave. I think I already said that one. And so there's so much to it, but it basically identifies that the polyvagal theory shows and proves that there's a bidirectional relationship in the body, meaning that the mind speaks to the body and the body speaks to the mind. Now, the polyvagal theory has identified that over 80% of the communication is going from body to mind, body to brain. Whereas for so long, we've been, playing out this 20% from brain to body. So somatic healing, in essence, is a very natural neurobiological approach to healing trauma, to healing chronic stress, to healing dysregulation, and to repattern and rewire the survival patterns that are keeping us safe. And so our autonomic nervous systems. This is me trying to keep it simple right
Yeah.
now.
I love it. Yes, I'm going to play this part back like 5 times for myself.
So our autonomic nervous system. So basically, when you hear nervous system health, everyone's talking about nervous system. So our autonomic nervous systems are constantly surveying our inner and our outer worlds and our relational field. So the space between us and the other.
Yeah.
Now, that is all happening every millisecond underneath our conscious awareness. There's this surveillance system that is going, are we safe? Are we safe? Are we safe? And by safety, it means physical and emotional safety, meaning, are we going to survive this moment? And are we connected to our tribe? Because from the womb to the minute we're birthed, for however many years, at least 3 years, we are in constant need of connection for survival.
Right.
So this surveillance system is a brilliant system that is always looking after us. But then it enters the modern worlds where we don't have, and we haven't been taught how to listen to our bodies, work with our bodies, honor its language, learn the language of our bodies. We've learned the survival pattern of escaping our bodies and entering our intellect and all the things that live up here, right? Very colonial and patriarchal impact.
That's how I've lived my life. Like you could pretty much just take my head, put 2 little legs underneath my chin, and that's Nikki. Like the body was separate.
Totally. And that's most people.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know where to go from here.
So I guess the question I would wanted to know is, you have this extensive training, knowledge, wisdom, coupled with your own innate knowing that I think you were born with. You came into this world with that so powerful and strong, I believe, just from knowing you. So it makes sense that you chose somatic therapy and somatic practitioner. And how were you able to, how did that help you, and how has that helped you since your diagnosis with CF to now? And how do you, I guess what I'm asking is that
I think I can answer with what you put down. I think I can get there. And if not, just let me know. I will say though, I didn't complete in essence what it is. So I would just recommend people looking it up more, just the impact and how it actually works. But like I said, it's a whole other podcast. But it's an approach that I believe is absolutely necessary. When I experience my own trauma, not what happened to us, but how we experience ourselves because of unprocessed survival physiology, survival energy, I recognize that my intellect and my nervous system didn't match. I knew I was safe in my mind, but my body was like, get me the F out of here right now. And I became super disembodied. I couldn't feel myself. I couldn't feel my intuition. I had no imagination, and all of my energy moved in survival instead of the neocortex. So I disconnected. I got really isolated. And in this experience, I knew the only way through was to feel why my nervous system was so scared all the time of things that were actually totally safe. So that's what it is. Basically, how has it supported me? It's I believe that nervous system health, and our nervous system is always healthy, but I'm going to use that term nervous system health, just because it's more understandable in this moment, is the absolute foundation of how we experience ourselves and how well we are. I don't believe that there's anything beyond that. Even food is medicine, even, well, I was going to say relational health, but relational health lives. Relations are a biological imperative. If we don't have relationships and we're not connected and socially engaged, our health will deteriorate. This is also something that polyvagal theory has acclaimed. So I believe that so much of my capacity to ride those big waves with Gerson Therapy, when I made potentially that not the best decisions for myself and I prioritized my family, in traveling those moments. Had I not have known my nervous system would have been so dysregulated, and I wouldn't have known how to come back down so that my level of restoration come back down. So I'll keep it simple there, but it's, to me, the bottom, the foundation.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I wish I had the perfect way to ask that question. And the way I asked it was definitely, it could have been much better. And I guess what I'm getting at for me, and you
Yeah.
answered beautifully, is you answered my crazy question beautifully, is that it's really to, like, I guess I'm so curious that if we could have witnessed two Zoes, Zoe 1 and
Mm,
Zoe 2, one doing the Gerson therapy over here and having CF, and one and somatic experiencing and somatic therapy, and then one just doing the Gerson therapy
I love
without
that.
that.
Mm,
And what would that outcome look like? And I'm pretty sure I know in my system, in my
yeah.
heart, in my full being, that it's
Yeah.
Zoe with somatic experiencing and the Gerson therapy, which has brought you the success, and coupled with a loving partner,
Mhm.
community. There's,
Well, I wouldn't have a partner if I didn't have somatics,
right,
because I would have been in protection more than connection.
right.
I
Yeah,
would have been a
that's
chicken
another
with
podcast.
I would have been a chicken with my head cut off. I wouldn't have had the capacity for attunement. I
Right.
wouldn't be able to show up as a mother that I want to. I wouldn't be able to hold firm boundaries with my medical system, but still help them evolve their edges. Like, I wouldn't have the capacity to restore. I don't think I would be here
Yeah,
at all. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
And that's what I was getting at. Which brings me to all the different things that I want to
Mm,
co-create with you.
oh my
And
goodness.
yes,
It's almost time, I think,
I
after
think it's
talking
almost
about this
time.
for 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Yep, I
Mm,
think it's time. I mean, I feel it. And to be
mhm,
able to bring that to other individuals with CF, but also without CF, everybody needs
mhm,
these elements, and especially the food as medicine piece, the detox, the
mhm,
somatic therapy, community, all of these things. And to
mhm,
bring this is, I think, a winning piece.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to other individuals with CF.
for sure. I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, again, I have so many things popping up, but
Hmm.
it just will just keep flowing. I just feel like what I'm really called to say, whether or not it feels relevant or not in this moment.
It's relevant.
It's like I want people to know this is like every part of us, everything that we do, every way that we behave, every way that we feel, um, our health, it's all like we all have good reason, and it's so valid based off our biology, our nervous system. And nothing is actually ever wrong with us. And
Mm.
I believe that so much of our healing and the professional or personal develop industry, and even this kind of spiritual industry, and even a lot of the holistic well-being industry, is orienting around what's wrong.
Yeah.
And it feels like we need to reorient around what's right,
Mhm.
because so much of who we are is right. And everything that we experience, everything we think, feel, everything, every way we behave, like it's so valid and for good reason, based off our trauma, the modern world we live in, our conditioning, our ancestral patterns, the
Mhm.
stress that we carry. And I believe that it's reorienting to what is right and good, and our wholeness, our inherent wholeness, is actually where the healing begins. So many of us are starting over here.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a gift that the nervous system gives you. You start to understand, like, it's so much permission to know who we are and why we are the way we are. And then it's so much permission to know how to have agency in our own bodies and the way that we show up for ourselves, because we don't have choice in every state of our nervous system. We don't. And that's why this is so important. So I know myself, when I'm in a particular state in my nervous system, I know in that moment I don't have choice. So what do? It's like knowing my cycle, menstrual wisdom. I
Mm.
then lean on Mike more. I'll lean on you more.
Yeah.
People that know me, that can support the choices that I know are best for me, because in certain states we don't have choice.
Yeah.
And so many people say we do have choice when we actually don't.
Mhm.
And it's for good reason. It's there to protect us, because if we yelled our choices in some of the families or the environments that we've been in, whether it's in the school system or, whatever our family system was, choice was scary or really unsafe when we voiced what we wanted. Just as a very simple example, right? There's so
No,
many
very much
nuances.
so. Yes.
And so we actually have dismantled our power in order to fit in and stay safe relative to our environment. And
Mhm.
so it's really reassembling, um, orienting and learning how to bring our attention to like what's coherent, what's working, what's like really good. Oh, wow, I have the capacity to shut down in these moments when otherwise would be unsafe,
Yeah.
I could go on, but it feels like just such a big, important piece. And it's the only place we can advocate for ourselves from, is I believe, when we're actually regulated. Because when we're regulated, we have connection to our true self rather than the fragmentations and the trauma vortexes and the unwellness, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And this is the part that has been the missing piece, I think, from the work I do, but knowing that I'm not going to be the one to be able to hold space and teach my clients this, because I mean 10 years of, training and experiencing and working with clients, and you have this amazing gift and wisdom to bring to individuals, and I want you to bring it and
Mm.
to them, not necessarily myself, but I can offer up that space to them because I know it's such an instrumental part in their healing. In their healing, it's imperative that um, we look at this from our health or wellness from this bottom up approach versus this Freudian, old school top down approach.
Mhm.
So how can people work with
Mhm.
you, Zoe?
Mm. I keep on doing this to you, Nick. I like want to rewind for a sec because I
Yes,
want to
do
add
it.
one thing there that
Do
I
it.
think is important. And
Hmm.
I also think the piece of us collaborating as professionals and as practitioners is also part of the medicine for other people, because we live in such a hyper independent world, and that's been one of our survival patterns. And we've always needed community to heal, to experience the wholeness of life. And if we keep on as practitioners trying to do it all and be it all, we are robbing our community of wholeness.
Yes.
And I think that's, a really big piece that's been lacking in especially the online space, just with how full on life is, like it's hyper independence model. And so, yes, for them, but also you and I coming together is also medicine for us and medicine for our clients and for the students. And it's
Yeah.
such a big piece is community, right? And community, as we said before we press play, is everything.
Yeah.
Like absolutely everything. Um
100%. Well
yeah.
said. Yes.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
yeah, it's so true. So for individuals listening to this podcast who are curious about engaging you, because I know they're going to hear your story and see your courage and your vulnerability and your love and your passion and knowledge and wisdom, everything that you bring, you, which is all of you. Um, how can they work with you?
We'll have my website, zoeyann.com, ZOEYANN.com. I currently have a few spots open for one-to-one somatic healing and integrative mentorship. So again, going back to nervous system health, as I said, really giving you and individuals a chance to know and experience yourself beyond the trauma, beyond the chronic stress, beyond the conditioning, really reconnecting you with your body as your ally and with your heart. So that's the one-to-ones are a potent opportunity, but I do have limited spots for that. I am, now that I'm feeling better and my kids are older, I'm offering more and more workshops and just opportunities. So I have Unlock the Power. I didn't tell you this yet, but I just rescheduled another Unlock the Power of Your Nervous System, a 3-day retreat where you can either choose to stay over or go home, like have a staycation in Squamish Valley. So that's an amazing opportunity. I just had one June 1st,
which was,
and it
I
went so
heard, was brilliant. It was
It
amazing.
was
Yeah.
just so much time to unravel and really connect to learning the language of our bodies and our nervous system, because you are learning an entire new language when you start to know how to navigate yourself and your world and your relationships through your nervous system. So that's September 20th to 22nd.
Amazing.
And
Well,
then,
we're going to get this podcast out right away so that people
hey,
hear about that.
awesome. I would love that. It's, oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. I would love to have you there, Nick.
Oh, I'm signing up for that 100%. Yes.
Okay,
I'm going to be
awesome.
there. Yeah.
And then I'm teaching at Enliven Festival this summer again. I did Enliven Festival last summer.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll just have more and more stuff. Hopefully you and I will be doing some integration pods for
Yes,
your
we will.
clients with Kulandira.
Yes, we're going to be doing that.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
and also to bring you into the Eat Real to Heal community as well, and the nutrition and detox students, so that you can support them as well, support them in their own healing, so that
Mhm.
they can go on and support their clients as well. So that's like another area that,
I
yeah.
would love that. I would love that. And I'm just opening my arms now that I feel better to be called if there's any invitations for facilitation or speaking, anything. I'm thirsty to step into my purpose with this. So
Amazing.
that's me. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so excited. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Labs. Thank you for this incredible recount of all the learning experiences. It's a lot of people when they are unwell and then they do something like the Gerson therapy, or they really change their lifestyle. And often they're so happy to be healed that they go back to living and they don't want to go backwards and have to relive any of that. But it's in the details, those lacy, intricate details, that allows other people to understand like really what it takes to take charge of your own health, to advocate for yourself, to do the work, right? Because there's no one pill, one hit wonder. Even if you're in the medical system and you're deciding to go for the surgery or the medications, those come with a whole host of accompanying work, whether it's in the form of side effects or, or whatever it is. And so it doesn't matter. It's on all sides that knowing what it looks like, feels like, tastes like, and you gave us a bit of that to see what that was like for you, which is incredible and powerful for everybody who's listening to this, especially if they're choosing to enter into this kind of work as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So
And that advocacy piece is so big. And
yeah.
unfortunately, we weren't taught to know our bodies. And so too many of us are at the mercy of a system that doesn't even know our systems that well.
Yeah.
So it's so imperative for sure to keep learning and being in community. And yeah, oh my gosh, the amount that I've learned from you, Nick. So thank you. And I don't say this lightly, like just off the cuff, but I would not be here at all if it wasn't for you. And not just your medicine, but your friendship. Yeah, you redefined loyalty and sisterhood and motherhood and all of it. Like you've just played such a monumental role in how I experience myself and how my family experiences me. So thank you.
There's a lot going in my body right now. I can tell you that. So I am going to receive that. And oh my gosh, there was so much that was flowing through me as you were saying those words, because I'm in that same system, and I've been in it for so long. You think like I've built up those muscles and I've built up that, to feel like, oh, hey, this is just what we do. But every new client I get is a big question mark. It's like, can we do this again? Is this going to work? Why isn't the rest of the world doing this? There's still so many naysayers and people who are constantly trying to tell us that food is not medicine, or you can do the carnivore diet, or you can do it's so exhaustingly overwhelming when it comes to understanding the human body and food as medicine. And and I go through it with myself, like, have I been depriving my children of DHA and, EPA, and what else have I been trying, by having our family live a plant strong lifestyle, and, and there's so much conflicting research out there, and it, just with everything that you're saying, and thank you. And yeah, and it reminds me in just how I'm feeling right now, that I have so much work to do in strengthening my own inner resolve and intuition as well. Um, yeah, so I've witnessed you over these last, several years, and it's a piece that I know I need to, it's an element I've been neglecting, a side of myself I've been neglecting. And so it does go both ways, with how much you have taught me and the courage and strength, yeah, to be able to continue to do this work. Yeah, and you were instrumental in that too. And so there's so much to say about that, which I definitely do that in person with you. Yeah. So much of your healing has been why I keep going. Yeah. In this work. Yeah.
Amazing.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for listening to this powerful conversation with Zoe Ann Stimson. Her story reminds us that healing is not linear. It's physical, it's emotional, and it's spiritual all at once. So if you love this episode, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that the body can heal when we give it what it truly needs. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us keep sharing these inspiring stories of recovery and hope. I am Dr. Nicolette Richer. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all next time.